Why is understanding rental construction so important?
Rental is really a key part of the whole housing system in Canada. The long-term optimism about the rental sector remains optimistic, but there are challenges in the short term.
What are developers saying about financing and project viability?
We really hope that over the long term, some of these techniques will lower the cost of construction.
What does this mean going forward, and is the outlook improving? You're listening to In-House, Canada's housing podcast, where we share the latest on Canada's housing market. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to In-House, the podcast that takes you behind the headlines of Canada's housing market. I'm your host, Joelle Hamilton. Today, we're going to dig into the state of rental construction in Canada. What's holding developers back? Where are they adapting? And what does it mean for the future of housing affordability? To help unpack the results of CMHC's latest Canadian rental construction survey, I'm joined by Aled Iorwerth, one of CMHC's Deputy Chief Economists. Welcome, Aled.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with us again in our new studio.
Oh, and it looks very nice.
Well, it was a team effort. So let's get started with the big picture. Why is understanding rental construction so important?
Well, rental is really a key part of the whole housing system in Canada. Obviously, people aspire to owning a home, but in many of our large cities, rental has now become very important because home ownership has become so expensive. So having an effective rental system of all types, all varieties is extremely important so that we keep and retain people in our large cities. The young, perhaps they have lower incomes, but this is a very important source of housing.
So let's dive into this year's survey results. What are the key takeaways?
The key takeaways, I think, at a high level is that the long-term optimism about the rental sector remains optimistic, but there are challenges in the short term. We've heard a lot about the effect of higher interest rates. Obviously, there's macroeconomic uncertainty because of what's happening on the international front. So there's a lot of short-term concerns, but I think everybody is retaining this optimism in the long term, but recognizing these short-term challenges.
What are developers, according to the survey, what are developers saying about financing and project viability?
They are concerned about costs. I think, as I said, in the long term, they're being optimistic, but they are being rocked around by financing costs. Higher interest rates are an issue. They're now having to explore whether they need multiple sources of financing. They're moving to longer amortization on their programs. So I think there are struggles. I think the other part that I found interesting in this year's results was we asked a little bit more information on development fees. We've been hearing a lot about this in the media, that development fees are a concern, and that's what we were finding in the survey. In some places in Quebec, where development fees have historically not played a role, obviously there's not as much concern. But you're seeing in Toronto and Vancouver that development fees are a major part of costs. There's a significant portion of developers for whom development fees are in 15 to 20% of costs in Toronto in particular. And even in other places, development fees are more than 10% of costs. So I think this is a major issue to take a look at.
How are developers adapting to our current kind of economic realities?
I think they're, according to our survey, they're developing a broader range of strategies. I think because of uncertainty, but also because they're seeing the long-term potential of rental, they're maintaining ownership much more than they used to. So usually, I think some developers would build and then sell to REITs or whatever. But it seems now that they're taking a long-term perspective. They're keeping a hold of these structures and holding them for the long term.
And now I want to talk a little bit about innovation. Are developers adopting modular or prefabricated kind of construction?
To an extent, yes. At a big picture, we have a lot of hopes in this area. Obviously, as I've discussed, there's a lot of issues around development fees, around regulations. So I think there are areas to improve for government. But I think the development and construction industry also need to improve the productivity of their of what they're doing, and we're going to have more research and analysis on that over the coming months. In this survey, what we were interested in finding out was, are people using these new modular techniques or using new technologies? What we found was that a fifth are using modular techniques. Now, on the bright side, people are starting to explore and starting to go into these technologies, so I think that's positive. But at 20%, obviously, there's more room to improve there. We really hope that over the long term, some of these techniques will lower the cost of construction, more off-site manufacturing and so forth. So, and getting construction costs down will be important to affordability overall.
Will it also accelerate the construction process?
Yes, the whole construction process is very long. There's, as I've been discussing, the regulatory approach, which is Toronto, Vancouver, 3 years, 5 years plus. Montreal is getting longer as well. Edmonton, it's getting shorter. So there's room to improve on regulation by government. But then the actual process of construction of some of these large buildings is a year. Well, for large buildings, it's probably over 2 years, and there must be scope to make that faster as well. So I think everything helps. We need everything across the board, all hands on deck. We need government to work. We need the construction industry to improve. So there's a lot of scope there for better technologies.
That's a good segue into my next question. To look at opportunities and risks in the future. What does this mean kind of going forward, and is the outlook improving?
Well, I think according to our survey, a lot of the developers are optimistic in the long run. So I think around a half were optimistic in the long run. So I think there are opportunities for more development. Our recent supply gaps reports highlighted how much more housing we need, and certainly more rental construction is an important part of that. So there are opportunities there to produce more, to increase supply. But then, as we discussed, there's also the opportunity to build better, build lower cost, and build faster.
So this was a quick one. It's actually already a wrap on our podcast today. Thank you so much, Aled, for joining us and for giving us some insights into sort of the minds of developers, thanks to the Canadian Rental Construction Survey.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners. You can read the full results from the 2025 Rental Construction Survey. Just check the episode description below. Did you know we're not just on YouTube? You can now find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Don't miss our next episodes for more real, data-driven discussions. If you're learning from and/or enjoying this podcast, please share this episode, follow us, or subscribe. Reach out. Let us know what you think. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.